Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming out. I want to provide you guys with a few updates on a few cases that we've been discussing past couple of days and several weeks. Just a quick update on the investigation into the death of Detective Sean Suter. We've not yet heard back from the FBI. No, we get that question often. Have we heard back? We haven't heard back yet. We don't describe that as unusual or it doesn't mean anything. They have a lot of their own work to do, a lot of different things that they're already involved in, so they have yet to respond to the commissioner's letter. But that doesn't mean we've stopped. Our investigation continues to move. We have gotten tips in. Tips have still come in, and we're still investigating, and our homicide detectives are still investigating the case as we speak. And with that, just a reminder that there is a $215,000 reward that's still being offered by a number of partners in reference to this investigation. So again, this is still an active case. It's not considered a cold case. It's an active case that we're still investigating as we speak. So before I transition, any questions on that?
This is still being pursued as an active homicide case?
This is still considered an active murder investigation, yes.
Okay. And in terms of getting tips from the community following leads, are you still looking for a man in a black jacket with a white stripe, or are you pursuing some other avenues that you can discuss?
Well, again, the day that we put that information out, that's all we had. I mean, obviously, at this point, a month plus later, this person in this jacket is definitely not going to be wearing it again. So we're at this stage looking for anyone with information that can help us identify the killer. So that's what we're continuing to do, as we do in all cases. And just a quick piggyback on that, this week, the United States Attorney's Office announced the charges in the case involving the murder of Latrina Ashburn. This is a homicide investigation that the Baltimore police responded to last year, and in that case, the FBI found that they had jurisdiction over it because this case, how it involved an attempt murder of a witness in the case. And the FBI and the Baltimore police homicide investigators worked hand in hand to continue to investigate that case, where they were able to successfully bring it to a point of charges earlier this week, and the suspect has been identified and charged. So these things do take time, and we've had many examples of these types of situations. Of course, I think it was earlier this summer, we stood with the FBI and other partners announcing the charges in the death of Mackenzie Elliott from a 2014 case, if I'm not mistaken. Again, it took 3 years, but that's, again, not unusual, sadly, and we work as hard as we can to bring closure as quickly as we can, but there's also a process. You can only get one bite at the apple when it comes to charging someone with a crime such as murder.
TJ, can you talk about the quality of tips that are still coming in, or the quantity of tips coming in, or are you still getting a fair amount of them?
Well, we're still getting some. I mean, it's never enough until you get the ones that take you to where you need to be. And again, when you talk about the quality of them, never want to discourage anyone from providing anything, because you never know where that tip might lead you. It can help you rule out things, help you rule in things where it might not lead you directly to an arrest. So, you know, we're still getting information. And again, some of that information doesn't lead us to where we need to be, and it's not the information that the tipster might have thought it would be. And some people get information secondhand, thirdhand, but they want to provide it, so we're still getting it.
Is there any precedent to asking the FBI to take over the lead of a case? And is there, I mean, there may be no time window, but does the commissioner have an idea of when he would like to hear from them before you move on from that, or where are you at on that?
Well, again, we're going to continue to investigate it, and I think, you know, when you hear FBI take over the case, that's to manage the case from their perspective, and they're involved, and that's something that I think has been understated over the past several weeks, they're involved and they've been involved, and we continue to work with them. I mean, I was asked the question, has this challenged our ability to work together? No, our working relationship is probably better than it's ever been with not only the FBI, but the ATF, DEA, Homeland Security, and all of the other federal agencies that help us and help us fight the violence in the streets. So as far as any time limits, no. We're going to continue to work towards investigating and closing the case, and if at some point that they decide to take the commissioner up on the offer and take the case, then we'll move forward from there.
Given the circumstances of that he was going to testify, is there any indication that, are y'all looking at anyone internal to the department? Have there been any, like in the 2006 Gemini Jones case when you searched the Southwest precinct, have there been any?
No.
Any
Next question. No.
It's one thing to say that you are still investigating this case and it's an active investigation, but the backdrop to that is the commissioner having articulated concerns that his detectives may not be able to investigate the case with all the information they need. And I think yesterday or the day before, Mayor Pugh said that if the FBI doesn't take the case, she'd prefer some other investigative agency take the case to put some outside eyes on it. Are you in a position now where you are already looking forward as to some other agency that might take over the case if it's not the FBI? Or
no, we haven't gone down that path. The commissioner doesn't have any expectation that we're not going to get an answer from the FBI. They're going to answer us. It's just a matter of when. And as far as the commissioner, and he made this clear, our homicide detectives are more than capable of handling this investigation. We're also looking at an investigation that is involving a colleague of theirs that they worked in the office with every single day. So that obviously affects the way that you investigate a case. But then the other moving parts of it that have been discussed widely, of course, is the federal investigation that's been going on. So as the commissioner stated back then, from not just simply an investigatory end of things, it's from a community trust and transparency end of things, where we know that we can investigate it, but at the same time, we know another agency taking the lead on investigating it, the FBI in particular, would lend to credibility and public trust in this case that, again, has gone down some paths and some corners that were unexpected to anyone, of course.
I understand. I guess more to the point, the question is, if the FBI says no,
well, that's a hypothetical that I don't want to get involved in at this point in time, because that hasn't happened. So that would be a hypothetical that I don't want to get involved in.
Have the investigators spoken with Mr. Matthews or Burley since they've been released and their sentences have been vacated? Has anyone involved in the investigation talked to them about their allegations that Suter was the one who crashed into their car prior to the chase that led to the drug planning?
Not that I'm aware of.
Is this a normal amount of time to wait to hear back from the FBI, or is this?
I don't know if there's a normal amount of time. Again, our working relationship continues, and regardless of the time, it's not like the FBI is standing somewhere saying, no, we're not helping. They're assisting right now. It's just a matter of jurisdiction. They have to prove that they have jurisdiction over a case like this before they can take the case. Okay.
The ACLU has requested the body cam footage from the crime scene area when it was locked down. Is that something that the BPD intends to make public?
We received their request. All right, we're going to move on to another case update. Absolutely tragic, sad situation here. Jonathan Tobash, 19-year-old young man, graduate of Poly, was a college student, was killed a couple of nights ago in Northeast Baltimore. This is just an overview of the area. We have a pin mark here, 3500 Pelham, where it occurred. And that's just to give people a bit of a visual if you were in this general area close to 11 p.m. when this incident occurred. And again, we talked about it this week. It appears that he walked up upon a robbery that was occurring, where two individuals were being robbed, and the robbers turned their attention to Mr. Tobash as he was walking into the store. It appears that Mr. Tobash resisted the robbery and the suspects shot him. I can say we're making progress in this case, but our investigators still would love to hear from anyone that might have information on this case. You can send an anonymous tip to 443-902-4824, where you can text it. You can call our homicide detectives directly at 410-396-2100. And of course, Metro Crime Stoppers at 1-866-7-LOCK-UP. You know, as you talk about these cases, and again, victimology matters. There's another case that I think, Kevin, you'll bring up in a bit, where we deal with a lot of tragic death that occurs, and we deal with people who put themselves at risk to be victims by being involved in drugs, gangs, and guns. And that's unfortunately the overwhelming majority of the crime, the violent crime that we see that drives a lot of this violent crime. But this young man was stopping at the store and doing everything right, doing everything he could to better himself. And some cowards with guns decided to cut his life short. We're asking anyone with information to come forward. There's a reward being offered in this case through Metro Crime Stoppers, so you can feel free to call there. But any information you can provide to help bring closure to this case. It's an empty seat at the table for Christmas, just all of a sudden over something stupid. I mean, it just speaks to the mentality of these bad guys that are in the midst of a robbery, and they complete that robbery only to go do another one. We can't keep making excuses up for these bad guys. I've said it time and time again right here at this podium that the likelihood that we've encountered them before is great. The likelihood that they're repeat offenders, whether it be juvenile or adult, is great, because the overwhelming majority, vast majority of our kids and residents of the city aren't into criminal activity like this. It's that same revolving group of bad guys that are wreaking havoc for people's families. And it's actually pissing me off as I sit here and talk about it, because it's unnecessary. I'm just tired of seeing it. I'm tired of getting up here and talking about somebody's record and saying how, oh, they coulda, shoulda, woulda, if we had just given them a hug. They shouldn't have the opportunity to hurt people's families like this, especially around the holidays, but any time of year. We had this conversation last week when a man was running around shooting at people just erroneously, and then we go back and say, well, he's been arrested 13 times, and we keep making up these excuses for these people who are harming our citizens, and the question keeps coming to the government, what are you going to do about it? Well, what are we going to do about it as a community to make sure people that want to take young people's lives like this and keep those people off the streets and away from our children? We have to do this collectively. The legislative session's coming up in Annapolis, and we can't have people just standing on the street corners in Baltimore. We need to beat the doors down in Annapolis and demand change to hold people who have shown their propensity towards violence accountable. And if you believe that it needs to be treatment, push for more treatment. Push for the reforms that are necessary, but we can't keep kicking the can down the road, because I'm sure the Tobash family didn't expect to knock at their door over some cowards that had a gun and decided to use it against them. Any questions about this case before I move on?
Do you have suspects?
We're making progress in the case, and I can't describe it as having suspects at this point, but we're making progress.
What do those reforms in Annapolis look like?
Well, I don't know what the reforms look like. The community knows what those reforms look like. It's much greater than just police reform. I mean, we can have the perfect police department, but as long as idiots are on the street with guns and they want to use them against 19-year-olds, we have a greater reform that needs to be done. And I'm speaking more towards the people who think there should be more, whether it be more community centers, more treatment, mental treatment in prisons, or mental treatment available, more accountability from the criminal justice side, whatever it is, to hold people accountable. We need to push for it, because clearly we're broken records continuously talking about, well, this person has a history of mental health problems. This person has a history of criminal activity in the system. This person has a history of suspended sentences. We need to collectively work together. Just like we want to get rid of those bad, corrupt, piece of crap cops, we need to get rid of these bad, corrupt, piece of crap people who want to do this to families. Go ahead. Go.
If we can step back one, in regards to the ACLU's request that you provide body camera footage from the investigation in Harlem Park, have you taken steps to isolate that footage so that you can make the legal assessment of it? Are those steps being taken?
Our documents collection unit will handle that request, and it's something that we're aware of.
So, in talking about repeat offenders and stuff, it seems like this year that among juveniles, that marijuana arrests are up to over 200%, and gambling arrests 160 or something percent. Is there a concerted effort on the part of the police department to return to something like broken windows policing and arresting people for minor violations?
Well, Baynard, juvenile arrests are up as well, right? Like carjackings,
right.
Violent crime among juveniles are up. So you have to look at the little things that juveniles are getting into, like weed. I mean, you might not think weed is something that we should charge people with, but it's a law, and sometimes you have to use laws and leverage to go after young people who are continuously harming others. And you talk about gambling, which, again, these are symptoms of the bigger problem, so I'm not familiar with your stats of 200%. You got to put all this in context, because if one of these kids puts a gun in your face and pulls you out your car, I don't know if you got here on foot or car, then the question becomes, well, what are you doing about this? And again, some of these young people aren't just involved in carjackings. They're not just involved in stealing something. They're involved in violent crime. So, these are symptoms to the greater problem. There's no concerted effort to arrest people for minor crimes, but the operative word is crime. All right, let's move on. Another case this week, again, the level of frustration, because we have a video shortly they'll play. James Forrester, he's a pretty popular tattoo artist and band member, and he was killed a couple of nights ago, December 18th. It was about 7:30. He was working at his tattoo place. We got a call, and it appeared to be a call for an assault. And when officers got there, wasn't any obvious signs of trauma. Ultimately, they discovered a bullet wound in his chest, and it looks like a robbery. He was on the phone with his wife at the time this incident occurred. And again, I have to maintain my composure and frustration level. But if this doesn't infuriate you, then you really are misplaced with the problem. Two bad guys are responsible for his death, and they look like they just wanted to rob him. He was outside, and he was approached, and then something happened, and that's what we're trying to figure out. We're mainly trying to figure out who's responsible. So as we do in cases that we have valuable video evidence, we release it when we can. And in this case, we have some valuable video of this suspect, or these suspects, and we hope that someone can ID him. Now, I want to say this, I say it often as we release video. This is not a Hollywood production. We weren't there filming it as it occurred. We get it from surveillance video, so they're not the most perfect pictures. But if you know who these individuals are, you know who they are. You can tell by their walk, their height, who they're hanging with, how they wear their clothes and the clothing that they have on. Anything looks familiar, call our investigators, 410-396-2100. Text a tip to 443-902-4824. And we're calling these people suspects. So these are the two individuals walking down, I don't know if this is Eastern Avenue, don't know exactly where this is, but it's in a general area of the murder, as you can see. A slowed down version will make this available to the news desk and also social media very shortly hereafter. So we want people to share this. All right, so we want people to share that video all over and hopefully get these two bad guys identified. And oftentimes in these scenarios, people are going to act different. There's two people right now that are going to know that there are surveillance pictures out there and their behavior is going to become different than it's been the last couple of days. They're murderers. They're people that need to be taken off the street and taken off the street now. They don't get a holiday. They don't get a day off. We need them off the street. So, again, anything you can do in either one of these cases, please call us. The text a tip line. You can text a tip anytime, day or night, 443-902-4824. Call our detectives, 410-396-2100. Call Metro Crime Stoppers, 1-866-7-LOCK-UP. Or you can download the Baltimore Police app and submit a tip that way. And again, in the Detective Studer investigation, you can also contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI. With that, is there anything else?
Yeah, so there was a shooting on Landvale yesterday. It's my understanding that it was Dante Crawford who was involved in a case at Renaissance Academy and acquitted. That was 2 years and a day before his shooting yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any information as to whether this was a case of retaliation, or are you investigating that possibility?
So I can't go into who the victim is in the case that you're describing, but that case that you're describing we would obviously look at retaliation, as retaliation's a big thing in many of the murders, unfortunately. However, what I can say about the victim in the case last night who is going to survive, we would ask anyone with information to call 410-396-2221 to speak to citywide shooting detectives. Occurred about 5:10 on Landvale Avenue yesterday afternoon or evening. But the victim in that case, and again, we say this often, today's suspect could be tomorrow's victim, today's victim is yesterday's suspect. The victim in this case we know was in a stolen vehicle and had a stolen gun in his lap when police and paramedics arrived. And we do believe that the victim in this case was shooting at the person who shot him. So it's possible that another person could have been injured in this, and we haven't connected that yet. Do we know if it's directly related to something else that might have occurred in the past? We don't have any evidence pointing to that at this particular time, but that could change.
You mentioned he's going to survive. You last mentioned he was in serious condition. Do you have any update on that condition?
Well, again, the only information I have at this point is that the injuries at this moment were described as non-life threatening. Again, with medical situations like that, it can change quickly, but at this point, non-life threatening. And I know that the victim was talking and not cooperative with officers.
Talking and not cooperative.
Not cooperative.
Okay. Obviously, his medical treatment is the priority at the moment. When you make allegations against an individual, including that he had a stolen gun and was in a stolen car, it raises the question as to whether he is facing charges related to those.
Mm-hmm. Yes, good question. Yes, he will be facing charges related to that once he's able to, and ultimately it'll probably be a warrant on him. So I say I'm not identifying the person, and that's customary what we do in non-fatal shooting situations. But in this scenario, ultimately, you'll know who the person is because a warrant will be written for his arrest in reference to that.
give a timeline in terms of that? Or is it
I don't.
depend on his medical condition?
It depends on the medical condition.
LeVar Mullen, who has filed a motion to vacate his sentence based on the Gun Trace Task Force and was a former member of Safe Streets. Some of the other former members of Safe Streets felt like that organization was being targeted by the Gun Trace Task Force. Is there any, can you comment on that at all?
Nope, because I have no idea what you're talking about.
In terms of Mullen being,
I
Safe
mean,
Streets working-
people filing motions and court proceedings like that. I don't have any information on it. Yes, sir.
On the video around Mr. Forrester's death, right there was initial talk about two teens seen running from that area. They seem to be older than
right.
teens. There, does that expand or does that change the search of?
Well, again, we have to go by what information is provided to us from witnesses at the time. So it, you know, again, what people see in the midst of a crisis moment is different. So they describe them as younger or as teens or what have you. But as you look at the video, and we don't know at this point, but as you're looking at the video, we think they're older, and we say men. We think they're grown men. We don't appear to be teenage, but we don't know yet. All right. So I'll get this video out to you guys. Any questions, Rick? Anything? All right. All right. So
Do you know what your homicide clearance rate is?
about 51 and 52%. I think it's 52%.